Welcome to the Black and White Podcast. They call me Ferdinand, the bringer of balance, leader of many disciplines, and one of your hosts of the Black and White Podcast. Today, on episode 4, we're going to be going into history yesterday, history today, and we're probably going to touch on history tomorrow. I'm here today with a very, very wise man, a great friend, Tim Pop.
Join Ferdinand Jones.
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Man, doing all right. I mean, it seems like a lot of time since last week. Why does that just a week goes by and seems like a long time, but otherwise it seems like time goes by so fast? Can't figure it out.
This is one of those weeks. I think you and I both was like super busy. I've been planning these courses out for the Root Tribe's Whole Health 16-week course, the modules.
So you know what? I want to pause there on something. I went to the page and started watching last week's for the first time, and I've got to tell you, this guy's got a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, and it's there on Root Tribes ROOTTRIBEZ.com. He's doing a series. Started last week. He's going to do it every Wednesday, the hour before we do this podcast. And he's got a whole lot of health information, and it's all nature-based stuff. And the guy's a genius. I ask him a question, he answers me off the top of his head on everything. So I invite you to go over and take a look at what he has to say on that page. He's been doing it for quite a while, and he's happy to share the information on health and how to contribute to your whole health and permanent health. Sorry, I had to put your plug in there.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, anybody who needs some help, feel free to go on over to roottribes.com. You can connect with me with the wellness check link, and then we also have various types of solutions in the gift shop for every type of health problem that the human body can have. But yeah, today we are on episode 4. We're going to be touching on religion yesterday and religion today and how things are moving in that religious space, right? So, Tim, what's your ideas on religion yesterday?
Yesterday, my idea on the history of religion. I'm looking for a little clarity on the question.
Well, when I say like history yesterday, I mean like more like ancient history, and then like religion today would be more like, let's say, the last 100, 200 years or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for sure, religion was very important for containing and upholding family connections. People tended to believe within what their families taught them, and there was quite a few different religions over the past, and the continuity between those religions is very apparent. If you ever take just that's all I've done, short little brief study moments to take a look at world religions and the history of those world religions. There's a lot of parallels, a lot of similarities from one religion to the next, and I think in times gone past, it was probably, well, I mean, I guess as things happen, which we'll get into where religion is today, it gets twisted for people's personal uses, which is not what religion's supposed to be there for. And the history of it, there was a lot of cleanse. Take a look at the Spanish Inquisition. There was war then and still now based on religions is what's happening now. But people, religious leaders going into and trying to decide what people should believe, and literally going out and killing other people that didn't believe what they believed and what they thought everybody should believe. They modified it to suit man's need instead of keeping it as a pure righteous need of human soul, human thought, human ponderance, human connections to other humans. And that's what it was designed for then. somewhere in the meantime, it got twisted into a different thought process to what it is that we have today. Now, I know you have a whole lot more solid, studious details that you can add to that, as far as where, in the variety between the different religions. You've been studious to that. You've studied religion to a pretty high extreme, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, I appreciate your comments. When I think about religion, it automatically takes me to ideological principles, ideology, right? Idea. It takes me to a place of, excuse me. It takes me to a place of thinking about how that can be uh, controlled in a group of people, how they can be engineered or inspired to walk towards a certain ideological principle for whatever reason, right? So when we think about that, I see how some acts of religion of the past have been righteous. I've seen how many others have been a detriment in a lot of different ways,
Mm-hmm.
So um, we've got Mithraism, we've got we've got uh, we've got Christianity, we've got Hinduism, we've got Confucianism, we've got Islam. We've got a lot of different religions. These are the main religions today,
Right. Right.
right? There are many, many more religions than
Many.
just these, and then when we go back in the past, I would say that we probably have just as many back then, or we have maybe a little bit less, but we still have a whole lot of religions. And I think that it goes to give an opinion right now. I think it goes to man's control, the control that man felt like that man needed, whether it be a woman or a man, But when you start introducing religions, and let's say it's anything outside of what the actual truth is, in my opinion, that's a power move. That's psychological warfare move.
Yeah, well, that's always been the status of religion, and its abuse of in history, and even as of today, that people use it too much as a tool of control, which is, to me, anti-religion. It's something that's working against what's the best for the people they have faith, if they have faith in their own service. Now, you can't deny any faith basis. There's no, you can't pull back and say I'm right and you're wrong. I mean, people have been saying that for eons. My religion's right and yours is wrong, and that's why there's people that that they want to have that conflict, and it's something that's been a part of what's going on in what we're seeing today. And he's not, he goes out there and he touts God, and and he's not religious at all. How do you know that he's not religious? Is he possibly using it? All right, I'll just call it out. I'll say Trump. So I mean, there's the people that are against Trump. They say, Trump doesn't have, he walks around with that Bible. It's like, do you know that Bible, he's had that Bible since he was a child? That was a Bible that was given to him, and it goes everywhere with him. He wasn't thinking anything about being president of the United States. Why is he walking around with it now? Because he's always walked around with it his whole life. You can't say whether that the guy is religious or not. So to sit there and judge him for what he's saying, I get the other points. I do. I get the things that people say about Trump and what he's doing with control and so on. Does it seem so? And that's where you go back and you revisit it. Is he utilizing some of that for additional control, or to put his opinions out there and gain the approval of others that are religious? And they say, well, yeah, I align with this guy because we have a similar faith. You know, we're largely a Christian nation compared to the rest of the world. I think Christianity is a larger faith than Muslim, but pretty much everywhere else in the world, the most popular religion is the Muslims, I think, isn't it?
Well, I would say that Islam is more practiced around the world, but I would have to verify that. That's not something I'm sure on.
Yeah.
But I do believe that the United States of America is largely a Christian nation, even though there's a considerable amount of people here who practice Islam.
Yeah, and other faiths as well. And that's something that we're going to get into. It's no, that's number 4. So we're going to get into quantum physics in the 7th. That's my personal favorite topic.
Yeah.
But it's I think just to be able to touch on that history, religion, and then religion today, where it is today. I think it's a terrible thing to vilify religion, to say that one religion is right or wrong, or that religion is something. I believe in separation of church and state, which is part of our topic today. But for us as people, as Americans, to have faith, I think is a good thing. Now, if you have faith, you have faith in something, you know, even if your faith is strictly science. If you're an atheist, you say, oh, well, then, you know, I have no affiliation. I don't believe in God. Well, you believe in something. You have an affiliation. You do have a faith in something, because take a look at everything in science, which, I mean, that's my personal area of study. Take a look at everything in science. There are things that are theories. They're not proven, but they're great ideas. But you have to have some faith to say, well, this is the correct way to believe it, and the correct way to think about it. Because people need to hold on to something. I get that. Myself, I've struggled with religion, with faith. I think any thinking man probably does. I think if you just deny that's fine. That's great. If you can do that, if you can deny any controversial thoughts in your mind about your faith, you have the faith of a child, just like it says in the Bible to have the faith of a child. Well, you know, that's not so easy for everybody to just have the faith of a child. But my doubts have gone from extreme to the point where I thought, gee, am I atheist? Because I'm not sure where I stand on belief. And then I realized very much I'm not. I am not an atheist. I am a theist. My origins, that looking for proof and evidence. Quantum physics answered a lot of that for me, and it gave me some peace, you know, which is a good thing to have at 58 years old. Although Ferdinand says I'll live to be 120. He's with his help. But our belief system, it's also our moral tie. And even if you don't believe in any particular religion, pick up the Bible and read it. It's like the most positive book ever written. You know, it has a lot of illustrations of how human beings should live and how they should treat one another in the real sense, in the real documented sense. It illustrates how man should live and treat other people, other men and women, and that we're part of a system together, and that we should connect that way. And it shouldn't make a difference. It shouldn't make a difference if I'm Christian and somebody else is something else, because I still identify with that very much Christian. And I see absolutely nothing wrong with any Muslim I've ever met. And I went to Iraq, so I've met a lot of Muslims. You know, there's not much up here, you know, I mean, where there's a predominantly white Christian neighborhood up here, the whole Chicagoland area, at least, you know, in the outskirts. So I, you know, before I went in the army, I didn't see a lot of people that fit that.
You know, up there where you're at, is you got Chicago right down the street, so you got
Yeah.
a large amount of Muslims who are up there. Moorish American Muslims, they practice Islamism.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
That's true. I don't get to Chicago as much as I'd like to, though. I'm 45 miles away from Chicago. So when
Well,
I'm saying,
I'm pretty sure that they're around Chicago as well as in
oh,
it.
I
Yeah.
would say so too. I would say so too. And I suppose there'd probably be a lot of places I could go visit, which I'd be very interested to do, and pray with my, I don't know. I didn't even know what kind of word or term to use, but my Muslim Islam brothers,
Yeah. Pray with
we're
your
all of the same core.
brothers and your
Is
sisters.
my Yeah, it is. We're of the same core, and I think we need to embrace that. It's kind of a little bit. Well, I guess it's not really. It's really the whole point. Um, we need to connect with one another, and we need to realize that it's okay to believe another way outside of your own brain. It's out there. It's real. It's been there forever. So why can't we just accept that one person believes one path, another person believes another path? And honestly, if God is the loving God, he doesn't care which one you believe in. He's probably very amused. It's like, oh, just wait till they find out the actual truth.
Well, the reason why we're having the issues that we're having is it's deeply rooted, man. Systematic spiritual warfare is being waged, right? They've taken the gloves off. We've got to really have a deep understanding of this. They've set up a system. They've engineered a system where divide and conquer is very easy to set up. So when you're able to keep dividing people and keep separating them, well,
yeah,
you're each of these groups of people, you're making sure that they believe in something. You're making sure that they got some kind of ideological principles that you've got some type of influence in. Well, when you do that over and over again, yeah, you're going to create a whole bunch of individuals who will never come together in unity because they think this is more right or this is right and this isn't right or whatever it is that they believe because they're all focused on believing something. Very few of them are walking the path of knowing, right, which requires experience. And in this space, we get a whole lot of people who are led to be wanderers in the wilderness.
yeah, yeah. It makes sense. It makes sense that you're talking about spiritual warfare out there. Well, that goes back to the division, and that what they let's just say the leaders, the people who are actually leading, and the people who are leading in a in a conceptual way, the faces of those leaders. But the leaders, that division that they're looking for, they want to see it in everything that they can find, and that because it keeps us where we're button heads. And I'm a centrist, so I'm button heads with both Republicans and liberals. You want to talk about a tough spot to be in. But where our faith base is, I think can be used positively, and to have people believe in something is to also but we're talking about the same kinds of morals, the mores of people, and the faith based. If you take a look at any of the written books that are out there on religion, you're talking about very similar morals. And those, I mean, and for Christians, it's the 10 Commandments, which, the 10 Commandments is good, but I mean, it's the Bible is not the 10 Commandments. The Bible is a complete work of, well, I don't know if that's true because the Bible's not really complete. That's a whole nother topic. But the idea of having those kinds of morals, to go out, to not kill people, to let people feel, think, and believe as they feel, think, and believe, as long as it's along the right moral content, meaning, where if we have a faith that we can attach ourselves to, or let's say a belief system that includes all religions, but it's an alignment of all religions, and say, here, this is a good way to live your life. Well, does this conflict with my Bible? And they'll look in their Bible and their religious book of choice, and it'll all be in there. Well, now that's gonna bring unity instead of division. Now, is there going to be pushback on such a thing, on that kind of an idea? I mean, it's a pipe dream. It's a pipe dream to think that we'd be able to put this kind of thing together just with a small little starting group. Not that's we're not indoctrinating anybody here today. That is not the point.
Nations have been started with less.
Yeah. Well, in the Bible it says, whenever two or more of my people have gathered, then that is church. That is faith-based.
When we talk about like the commonalities between religions, I would say that it's exactly what you were saying. It would be morals, ethics, principles, and universal laws, right?
Yeah.
This is what kind of connects every religion, in my opinion. I think that the key in all religions, for those who choose to walk the path of whatever religion that they're walking, everyone should be focused on purity, because we're never able to see the truth until we become it. So if we want to be able to truly understand the doctrines that we're reading, and not just have to rely on whoever is delivering the message on Sunday, or on a Friday or on a Wednesday, or whatever day that they're going to their respective physical location or online location for their religion. Purity will open that door and help us to see the truth. So it kind of is one of those aligning factors within every religion, within anything that a person desires the truth in. When they walk that path of purity, it opens all the doors inside of my Father's many mansions.
Yeah, well, and you deal with that a lot with root tribes, and the idea of health, internal health, that there is, and a connection into our third eye, our ability, and that's not some kind of a. And there's people out there that think that that's a fake thing. The pineal gland doesn't exist. Isn't that funny? We're talking about one of the most basic things. Calcification happens, and that there's a way that you can actually free your third eye in order to see things in a deeper, more spiritual cast. And that's a big part of what you focus on with root tribes, is the natural things that exist out there, and roots. That's a big part of it. But there's all the natural elements that are out there, and to get away from chemical compounds, which would mean if you can get it in a natural source, if you can get it out of the ground, if you can get it out of a plant, which that's where everything originally started anyway. So the things that are synthesized out there and given to us as, well, here, this is something that'll work as good, does not work as good. I've been eating this stuff for a year, and I feel really good for it. It's changed a lot of things. I'm very appreciative of that, but that's because of the natural elements to it. Now, I'm still the same person I was before. It doesn't change a person to the core unless you're somebody that comes from deep-seated bad health. And if you're eating if you're eating most of the stuff that's on the shelves in a grocery store, there's a lot of crap that's on the shelves. Start reading if you can't pronounce like 50% of what's on an ingredient label, probably not good for you. And well, Ferdinand would say, even less than that, that it's just a few elements would be enough. But internal health has to come first. So, if you keep the nation sick, well, then it's going to be a lot easier to control the minds of those people, because they have an innate, only because it's fed to them, they have an innate inability to to think, feel, see, and believe along what is truth and righteousness. So you've got something that's stealing away from your mental ability to have that kind of mental strength to see more than what average people see. And that it starts from the inside, it starts from that health aspect. Oh, exercise is good too. You're muted. There you go.
I'm over here muted and talking. Health aspect is majorly important. Like I was saying before, if anybody wants to manipulate a group of people, all they got to do is cut them off from their spirit capabilities, their spirit connection, right? Well, how do you do that? You calcify that pineal gland. If you calcify that pineal gland, now they're not able to get the messages and the downloads and the connection that they would need to the cosmos that they might not even know that they have. That connection is severed, not completely, but it's severed enough where they're not able to know thyself, so they're not able to trust thyself. So now you got to trust somebody, right? Everybody's got to gamble. Everybody, right? So some people, they go to the casino, they pull the lever after they put a dollar in, right? They play blackjack, they do FanDuel or they bet on sports games. And then there's others who bet on themselves, right? And in this space, this is one of these are these things that we all have to have. It's something that has to be fulfilled in each person who has life. And when we know this and we put certain things in place, we can manipulate it so easy. And it's sad to watch. It's hard to watch because we're watching engineered race wars as a result. We're watching engineered religious wars as a result. They're playing out on different levels. Sometimes it's whole nations that are in these wars. Other times it's just sects of people within a nation, almost like a civil war. Shiite versus Sunni, quote unquote, black versus white, and the list goes on and on and on and on, right? Well, if we develop purity as a people, as humanity, there's no one who will be able to manipulate us anymore. And what they're manipulating at the end of the day is emotions in people. This is so hard to watch. Like if I turn on the television and I watch something and it goes to commercial break, I'd be sitting back like, oh man, I don't want to watch the commercials because I already know what the commercials are doing. The commercials are manipulating my emotions.
Yep.
And next thing you know, you're learning something new because your emotions was piqued, or you're buying something from the store. You're getting some kind of food you probably shouldn't be eating because it looked amazing on the commercial. They had the right kind of music. They had somebody really cool eating the food. So now you want to look cool like this other person and you eat the food. Well, they're doing the exact same thing with religion. And that this is a hard thing to watch. Now we've talked about religion of yesterday. We didn't go too deep, but we're having a conversation. We talked a little bit about religion today. I'm wondering what religion tomorrow is going to look like.
Well, you have to take a look at what the path is. And really, it's been out there as something that has been more and more used to manipulate people instead of what it was originally intended. At least, what truly righteous, faithful priests, etc., intended it to be. They're looking at a future of eternal life, and the original writing of it was to help people with the goodness of themselves, of humanity. And the path now, it's used almost exclusively to manipulate people. Whether that's and I say it, I mean that goes back, we're talking modern times, but modern times goes back 1,000 years, at least. Maybe there's even a definition for what that is, but 1,000 years, for the last 1,000 years, that's where we've seen a change in religion. You know, in the Bible, it's illustrated that Christ does not like churches. He's it's very outspoken about that. He's more about the sit in your living room, gather with some people, and talk about your faith, talk about how the faithful should behave and what they should do. That's the way church was held back then. Well, now it's all cathedrals. There's churches, you go to the biggest sin cities of the world, and there's churches all over the place. But they're built up as some kind of a, they're built up of stone. And I spent my life going to some of the prettiest, Grace Lutheran Church in River Forest. That was my grandparents' church. My grandmother and great grandmother who lived together, and Grandpa was there early, and then but he died at 90 something. 90, I don't know how old he was, but anyway, he was the last paternal person on that side of the family. And I saw these beautiful churches. You go inside Grace Lutheran Church in River Forest, look it up online. It's gorgeous. I mean, it rivals some of the Catholic churches, so it's not one religion that does it. And, all of those buildings, those structures that are built, and, they build steeples that have the cross on top, for Christians. And, there's different things on top of different religious structures. But, Christ in his purity it's in the book. Christ in his purity, he wasn't about the churches. He wasn't about building a bigger structure and they were doing it then, but not talking about building a bigger structure. It was building the inside of people. Well, today I'd say it's just as bad or worse as than let's say 1,000 years ago when they started building all these things, and a few hundred years ago when, some of the most solid structures that were built in a spiritual pathway that all the way through to today. And you have these marvelous pieces of architecture, but that doesn't really have a lot to do with faith. The idea is that, we can gather people and that is important. That is important. But is the leadership righteous? Now, I'm an optimist, so I'll say sure. Well, yeah, you know what? In general, they are. But there are some, I'm sure, that are not, and they're leading a path that is, you believe it our way, or don't. You're not a member of the faithful. And then I don't know. What do you think is the worst part of the path of where we're going?
The worst part of the path of where we're going
in relation to religion?
Well, we got a lot of things that's about to play out, and you and I, we've talked privately about these things. But when you think about religion, that automatically takes me to the book of Ezekiel in the Bible, chapter 13. So that book is very, very specific about what happens to the false prophets. And I don't think that all of the religions are just going to disappear, but I think that they're going to have, a lot of them are going to lose a lot of people, because most of these individuals who are teaching whatever religion that they're teaching, whatever clergy position that they're in, most of them are not walking the path of purity and then stepping into that space and serving in that role. Most of them are being inspired in some kind of which way, shape, or form. Some of them might even go through theology school, go through seminary, or they might just do their own independent study, but most of them are not walking the path of purity. So if you don't walk the path of purity first, then step into that space, you stepped into the space of a messenger or a prophet, and your demonstration is not speaking what it's supposed to speak. I hope every single pastor, I hope every single sheik, I hope every single temple leader worldwide opens up Ezekiel 13 and reads that, because all of those individuals out there, if they're not walking the path of righteousness the way that they're supposed to be, and it's very clear in each of the religions how a prophet or a messenger or just some type of a speaker of God is supposed to be living. If you're not living that way, I highly recommend you use this year to get right, because things is about to change. There's about to be rebellion in the realms of communication, and war is on the horizon.
Yeah, and I mean we see it in religious text that, I mean, it's spelled out. It's spelled out in the zodiac,
Yeah.
that, you know, conflict. Now, you don't have to believe it, but take a look around you. You don't even have, take all that out of there. Take a look around you. What's it look like? There's a lot with the conflict that we're talking about. There's no question that that there are people that are fighting each other, and they're kind of pushing to be at the front of the list. This thing is happening. This thing's real. Now we've got the accelerator, which, well, gee, okay, so for the structure was built, the internet. Now it's a long time ago. I watched it develop. That's scary. But after seeing the internet, it was the greatest thing. Well, now what do we have? AI, and China has built this amazing AI machine. Its ability to make computations that are literally a billion times faster than anything that's currently existed. Take all that and use it for strategic reasons. You know, think Terminator, I guess, but use it for strategic reasons, and where they want to rule the world. They really do. And I think you know, in the best of all light, I think we've always tried to be moderators and say, no, you can't do this. This is and you know, well, these are the sanctions that were put in place, and so on and so forth. But that conflict is getting very real, and you don't have to be religious to see it. It's out there. It's real. How fast is it going to happen? What's going to happen next? Well, there's a lot of there's answers to that. If you want to take some faith and take a look at religious texts, take a look at just the timeline. The zodiac. Even just in let's just take the most basic part of the zodiac. The zodiac is a map of time. That's what it's about. It's a unmoving star formations that create the zodiac signs, and then it's the passage of the things that are moving, which is especially, well, I mean, that's really all we can see moving is the solar system that we're on, which is just this tiniest little infinitesimal thing that's in our galaxy, which is nothing compared to the rest of it. Well, when we're looking up at the sky and we're using the zodiac as a map, it's this crosses over that part, whether it's could be a planet or another celestial body, where you see a structure pass across the front of one of these things, and each one of these things, they happen over and over and over again. Well, I'm sitting here looking at this, and is that my sign? Virgo.
Would you like me to break this down for everybody?
Yes, please. Let's hear it.
So this is a zodiac wheel, right? Or a recreation of the zodiac, what some people may call not the ecliptic, but the celestial sphere. Okay, so we've got 12 zodiac signs in the zodiac science, which are Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Okay. Now within the zodiac wheel, what you see there is a bunch of lines in red and blue. Those are called aspects. And then you see the numbers all the way in the center. Those are called houses. And then we're looking at the planets that are slightly on the outer of the lines, right? So those planets are the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus. Well, let's do them in order. From let's do them in order. So we got Cancer at the top and Gemini at the top, right? So we got Mars from the left to right. We got Mars, then we got Jupiter, then we got Uranus, then we have Chiron, then we have Venus, Neptune, the true node, Mercury, Saturn, the sun, the moon, and Pluto. Okay. Now, each of these planets within the zodiac have a certain type of symbolism with them, right? So the sun is symbolic of your outer self, your ego. The moon is symbolic of your inner self, your emotions, your intuition. Pluto is symbolic of your transformation. Saturn is symbolic of justice, time, death, karma. Mercury is symbolic of mind. The true node is symbolic of your spiritual destiny. Neptune is symbolic of revealing hidden information. Venus is symbolic of beauty, love, and relationships. Chiron is symbolic of your healing. Uranus is symbolic of rebellion, revolution, sudden changes, unexpected things, technological advancements. Jupiter is symbolic of expansion, blessings, and abundance, and Mars is symbolic of aggression and war. Now, each of the zodiac signs are symbolic of different things. So you have Aries, which is symbolic of the warrior, the initiator. Taurus, which is symbolic of values. Now, Aries is masculine energy. Taurus is feminine energy, right? So we have a certain type of balance that happens within this science. And this is how it's able to be so effective, because that's the key to the entire universe. So we have Gemini, that's symbolic of communications, and it's also masculine air energy. We have Cancer, which is symbolic of the ancestors and home, and it's also feminine energy. Then we have some more masculine energy with Leo, which is symbolic of high level leadership, royalty, emperors and empresses, fire energy. Then we've got Virgo, which is the virgin, and it's earth energy, also feminine energy. Then we've got Libra, which is masculine air energy, which is symbolic of justice and relationships, partnerships. Then we've got Scorpio, which rules the sex organs, and that's water energy, right? And then we've got Sagittarius. And, excuse me, so Scorpio is also transformation energy. Sagittarius is philosophy energy. Is also a type of communication energy, right? Which makes perfect sense, since it is directly across from Gemini. And we got Capricorn, which is cardinal Earth energy, and Capricorn is character and integrity, right? Um, then we have Aquarius, which is I know energy. And just for everybody who doesn't know the zodiac signs, the wavy lines that are orange, and it has Pluto and it has the moon in that section in the fifth house, that's where Aquarius is. Right. So Aquarius is humanitarian energy. It's the water bearer. So we're talking about the sign of when we say the water bearer, water could be looked at as emotions, inner self. And then the water bearer, which is, and it's an air sign. So we're talking about the emotional thinker. This is one of the ways that it could be, the interpretation of symbolism could be looked at. Then we have Pisces. Pisces is the completion of the cycle. No matter whether we're talking about processional zodiac or we're talking about our 365-day zodiac. So Pisces is the subconscious. Pisces is also death and closure. And Pisces has multiple other types of symbolism to them.
So you maybe you're at that point anyway, but I want to jump in here, and we were talking about conflict and timing and conflict. You told me some different things about this particular structure, this wheel that we're looking at, and you're talking about Mars. And
well, if you want to talk about conflict, I will focus on 23 degrees in Taurus. You got Uranus there.
This I think this relates directly to what we're talking about with where where, I mean, overall conflict, get your house ready. Meaning prepare yourself for what could possibly be some very difficult times. We're talking about alignment with here in the zodiac, and which I want Ferdinand to go on to a little bit further, but it aligns with the other things in religious history and religious teachings about what's coming next. You can see it in a lot of different writings, and it's I don't want to be the guy who puts on the, what do you call it, the sandwich board and walk around and say the end is near, but you should be ready at all times. It says it's one of the great teachings of the Bible is be ready at all times. This is one of those times to really be ready. You see the conflict that's happening out here now. Ferdinand can explain a little bit further about what this particular tool, this measuring tool, says.
Absolutely. So within the zodiac wheel, let's see if I can use the mouse to point it out. All right, so right over here, we've got Taurus. Okay, so we've got the planet Uranus in Taurus. The planet Uranus is symbolic of sudden changes, unexpected things, rebellion, and revolution. Okay, so when we look at that planet and understand that that planet is about rebellion and revolution, and it's in Taurus, which is symbolic of values, spiritual femininity, wealth, right? So we see the revolution, the rebellion, the unexpected things that have taken place over the last 7 years in Taurus. Okay, and I want to be clear on why I'm saying 7 years. Uranus takes 84 years to move through this wheel one time. Well, that's the equivalent of it orbiting the sun, 84 years. So it's in each zodiac sign for an average of 7 years. Well, it's been in Taurus for 7 years. It'll be transiting into Gemini, which is right here. Okay, for everybody out there, this is Gemini. It's going to be transited into Gemini in July of this year. It'll retrograde out once or twice, and it'll be in Gemini until 2033. Whenever Uranus goes into Gemini, we have conflict in multiple parts of the world, full-fledged revolution or rebellious type wars because of the rebellious spiritual energy, the revolutionary spiritual energy that's in the air. That is, and in this spiritual energy is always going to supersede everything else that's going on. And then it's going to translate down. It's going to trickle down into mind and trickle down into body. And then we see the physical representation of what's happening at the spiritual level. This science right here helps us to explain all of that. Now, what I will say is this before I land my plane. This is very serious, everyone. This is very, very serious. Anybody out there who has did the proper research on Uranus and Gemini, and you've seen the historical analysis, you already know what's coming. If you haven't read the historical analysis on Uranus and Gemini, I highly, highly recommend you go and look that up, read about it, watch some videos, because things are about to get very, very difficult in multiple different nations. People have a chance to prepare right now. But once hyperinflation kicks in, they're done. They don't got a chance at that point if they haven't already acquired the proper supplies that they need.
Well, I'd like to add that it's not one president or another. It's all of them, really. But I mean, they all deficit spend, and I don't think Trump's going to be any different. But we've been put in this place before, but we're in a pretty extreme financial situation right now. The last Biden added so much to that. I mean, we had more inflation than 40 years. Then so it's been that long since we had this much inflation. Well, you look at those timelines. When you see those things happening, and you see what's going on with where the future is going to lie in that, and where the money's going to go, and I don't think the stock market can stay here much longer. And it's not because of this president or that president. I mean, they're just, people are trading. Traders are trading. They're putting big money in. They're drawing as much money into the system as they possibly can. And there will come a time, it's in the papers. I mean, you read financials, and it's out there. These valuations are insane. How can this possibly be worth what they're spending on it? You want to look at go look at Palantir. Take a look at the chart on Palantir, and you go, oh my God, that's a great company. Well, I mean, it is a good company, but we're talking about something that's like ridiculously overvalued, and it keeps going up. Well, how long can that kind of a thing continue? What goes up must come down, and it happens every single time. There's always a correction in the market. Now, take that alignment, take a look at the conflicts that we're having with other nations, not only us with other nations, but other nations with each other, and the things that are going on. Leaders are starting to want to be. They want to be at the front of the list. They want to be the big deciders. Well, that there's conflict that's coming up there. You look in Revelations, Ezekiel, look in Revelations, and what it says about the end of the world. Man, let's just call it. Maybe not the end of the world is a little bit much to say. The end is near. We're in the sandwich board. But we've got these cycles that happen over and over and over again. And that's a 7-year. Is that the 81, 90, 81? That's 4. I'm not seeing a 7-year in here. But all of these charts, all of these things are coming into alignment. And then you have kind of a long-term cycle that comes through, and you pull Zodiac into it, which is a map, a timeline. It's a map of time, and that's what happens during these times. Why does it happen? Does it matter why it happens? I mean, I have my own theories as to why. Ferdinand could probably talk about it for 5 hours, but does it really matter why it's happening? Because it's happening again. Oh, it's a repeated pattern. Yeah, it's a repeated pattern. And then with everything else that's happening in the world, all we have is confirmation. Well, there's going to be some people that are, they're going to be looking for their God at that point. That's for sure. Hey, wait a minute. I remember this from religion when I was a child, and I thought as a child. So anyway, these things are all aligning, and what we're seeing is everything coming into one valley. It's pointing towards a valley. And that valley of time in it might not be as bad as it looks like it could be. Maybe it'll just be some downturn here, a little bit of famine in this country, a little bit of,
I guarantee it'll be worse.
I'm an optimist. I can't help but to be an optimist. I've been an optimist my whole life. So, I look for can mankind stand up and do the right thing, first of all? So when it comes time that people need help, are you going to come in, and are people going to be there to help each other? It's obviously worked out so well in the past. I'm kidding. That smile. That's funny. That's funny. The knowing Ferdinand.
Well, we got to look at the reality that the world has been poisoned. We got to look at the reality that the education has been fugazi. The politicians have been a joke. The religious space hasn't been competent. When we see all of these different spaces being out of control, us trying to hopefully trusting that people will do what's right while Uranus and Gemini is, I would say, it's a fantasy. And if a person chooses to have that fantasy, that's up to them. But looking at the reality of it, when we look at the landscape of what's really going on right now, we've got to pay attention that we've recently come into the age of Aquarius. That means that we started a new matriarchal season of a great year. Well, every great year is going to have a matriarchal season and a patriarchal season. We just came out of the patriarchal, but the patriarchal is trying to hold on to power at the same time. Well, when you have that matriarchal energy and that patriarchal energy both in the atmosphere at the same time, well, usually in August around here in Virginia, we see hot air and cold air smacking up against each other, creating hurricanes. All right. So we're looking at a spiritual hurricane that's taking place right now, and we see the effects of the spiritual hurricane. We call those effects an identity crisis, right? So this is taking place. Then at the same time, we got Uranus entering Gemini. We've got Saturn entering Aries. We've got Neptune entering Aries. We've got all of these things taking place. And these are the beginnings of other cycles that will have other effects. So when you say, all right, let's put Uranus in there in Gemini, while we already have this spiritual, matriarchal and patriarchal energy beating up each other right now, and the matriarchal is winning. Make no mistake about it, the matriarchal is winning. Well, now you got a whole bunch more confusion that's about to be thrown in there. A whole bunch more rebellious thinking, a whole bunch more revolutionary thinking. While those same people who are going to be thinking very revolutionary, they have been being oppressed for hundreds of years. I'm not just talking about people who look like Ferdinand. I'm talking about people who look like Tim as well. They've been taught lies as well. They've been sent on paths to kind of cap them out at a certain level of being able to achieve wealth and go to the next level. Because if they wanted to do that, they'd have to join the club, drink the Kool-Aid. Well, there's a whole bunch of people who ain't going to do that. So they were stuck at a certain level. We all have been manipulated in this thing, you know? So when we look at all of these pieces, and then we say Uranus is going into Gemini, and when we look at the historical analysis, all we see is war. No, we're not going to see too many people looking out for anybody. That's just the reality of that time frame. We're going to see a whole bunch of people doing real dirty things to people, because if we don't have access to 911, we don't have access to grocery stores, dental clinics, hospitals, fire departments, and the list goes on. You're going to see mass pandemonium. And the reason why you're going to see that right here in the United States of America is because of how many people are eating drugs every day. And they don't even care anymore, even though it says it right on the nutrition facts label. And they don't understand what happens if their drug pusher isn't available. Well, where are you going to get your drugs from? So now what happens is you go through the same thing that any heroin addict or cocaine addict goes through. You go through withdrawal symptoms, but you go through these withdrawal symptoms while you're in a mindset of complete desperation and you're heavily armed.
Yeah. So I'm optimistic, but I'm doing a little preparation. Don't kid yourself. The people that are paying attention are doing some things. I mean, the best things that we can, and we talk about what those things are, and you know they'll come up again and again here on this show. But as optimistic as I am, I'm also a realist, and I see these things, and I see the alignment across multiple disciplines of thinking, and the alignment all is pointing to that valley, you know. So I mean, take that for what it's worth. But when it comes to, oh, I had a thought that I wanted to throw out. This happens when we talk all the time. It's like I bookmarked something in my head that I got it. Something you said triggered, and now I got to try to get there. Oh, here it is. There's another cycle that's coming around, and this is something that nobody talks about. It was known by the government for a long period of time, and there's documentation that was suppressed that is now is let out in the open. I don't know why. I mean, why would it be out in the open now? But another thing that we're in the midst of, and it's pretty serious. We talk about weather changes, and certainly weather does change. Absolutely. Why does it change? Well, there's things that happen on the planet in regular intervals and regular cycles, and one of those things is it. Well, it was originally called a pole reversal. A pole reversal so it literally, the way it sounded was that the North Pole would become the South Pole. Magnetic change. North Pole would change to the South Pole to the North Pole. Now, when you take a look at satellite pictures of the Earth, and you can see the different places, the elemental changes in geologic formations and different things like that. Knowing that I'm in northern Illinois, we had a glacier come and scrape the northern part of Illinois right up to my back door. Where's the glacier now? Is it global warming? No, it's not. I mean, it's climate change is what it is. But you take a look at the time frame of when these things happened, and they aligned. It's for lack of a better way of saying it, it happens every 13,000 years, like clockwork. That plus or minus 4,000 years. You see, when you look at the geological evidence, it's, there's like 7,000 years apart, 13,000 years apart, 16,000 years apart when this pole shift happens. And Matt, can you think about what that impact of reversing the poles? Let's say it goes from here to Sudan and back. It's going like 3/4 of the way, and then it starts its way back in let's just call it a 10,000 year cycle approximately. That 10,000 year cycle, if that's something that begins now, what are going to be the changes? It's going to be pretty drastic. Now, it doesn't matter drastic over what period of time. Well, it's 13,000 years. We may be all dead and gone by the time we see anything serious, but the future generations are going to be living with it. They're going to have to live with it. Is it going to be a sudden change? I don't know. I've started to dig in it, and I see evidence for both sudden changes and slow changes. So I don't know if it's different every time. I haven't gotten to any of my own conclusions on that yet, for what that's worth. But again, another piece of the puzzle, another major change coming. It's the beginning of a major change, but it doesn't matter. It's a major change, and it may be directly related to this map that Ferdinand was showing us with the zodiac, and it says here's this alignment, and this alignment. This is that we're coming into this, and there's not only that going on, but there's also these other three things, and that alignment might be the thing that makes the poles switch or shift. Let's just call it shift. So again, I mean, we've got just another piece of the puzzle, and it's all pointing to the same stuff. So we've got that kind of conflict. We've got that kind of human challenge to be dealing with here. And depending on the scale of how long you're talking about, it's right now, it's probably going to be on the shorter end where things are pretty tough. We talked about Ferdinand. We talked about some of those changes are going to be something that the switch happens quickly. We're going to be in this conflict for a period of time. How long is it going to be? Kind of hard to say, but it's like it's going to switch, and it's going to be a fairly fast change. I mean, we're talking spring of next year, where we start to see this change begin dramatically and make something that's going to be life-changing for us as human beings.
When you say the changes, are we talking about Uranus and Gemini, or are we talking about the pole shift?
I'm talking about all of it.
Well, with the pole shift, that more than likely, hopefully, it takes as long as the last one did, right? So the last one that happened, the scientists call the Younger Dryas. Okay, I've went ahead and pulled it up for everybody so y'all can see that it took place over a very long period of time. Something like 1,000, 2,000 years or something like that, and hopefully this pole shift happens, something like that over a long period of time. Now, during these pole shifts, it's kind of hard to pinpoint, what they're going to do at what time. It might speed up at a certain point in time. It might be 300 years from now, might be 1,000 years from now, 2,000 years from now, but at some point, this thing is going to speed up from my understanding. And so it's something that
Well, you're pushing a freight train in another direction. It takes a while to get that freight train going.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, but this is something humanity needs to be looking at, because we're actively in the midst of a pole shift right now. Now, Uranus Gemini is something different, and that's just for our viewers out there who are listening. And really want to thank each and every one of you for listening and tuning in to the Black and White podcast. I'm the guy with the book. Some people call me Ferdinand, and I got Tim over here. Listen, this guy is super intelligent. This guy is super talented. All right. So every time we live, tune in and listen to him, man, Tim. Right. But getting back to what we're talking about, Uranus and Gemini is coming. Right. Now, Uranus and Gemini is its own problem. But see, one of the heaviest points of this problem of or not problem, but the planet being in transit into Gemini is what happens with Saturn. So Saturn is a planet of justice. Right. So we might want justice during this time frame. Saturn falls whenever it enters Aries. So that chart that I just had on the screen, it had Saturn about to enter Aries not too long from now. I believe it happens in May. Right. But either happens in May or the summer. Well, if Saturn falls and Saturn stays in each zodiac sign for 2.5 years, that means that Saturn falls for 2.5 years. While Uranus is in Gemini. Now, we've also talked about Jupiter. Once it enters Cancer, which is in July of 2025, that is a time of blessings. That's a time of multiplied abundance, multiplied expansion, exponents on it. But Jupiter takes 12 years to orbit the sun. So it's only in each zodiac sign for 1 year. So by July of next year, you and I, we talked about that conjunction that's going to happen. Uranus and Mars, July 4th, 2026. I think that's the kickoff of whatever is about to take place. But what's our saving grace is Jupiter being in Cancer for a year. Once it comes out, all hell's about to break loose, because Saturn has failed. Saturn's not in. If it was in Aquarius or if it was in Capricorn, there would be a lot of justice happening, because that's the zodiac signs that Saturn rules. But each of these planets, they have a ruling sign, they have a exaltation sign, they have a detriment sign, and they have a sign where they fall. So justice will fall from sometime this year until the later part of 2028, possibly early 2029. Wow.
As long as we're on the subject, like to talk a little bit about the effects, the zodiac, and so it's on a chart, and the ancients, they followed this as science, because that was the science. That was how the ancients navigated. That's how they predicted what was going to happen. That was the science of the day. There's been, and there's a lot of there's a lot of things about it being truth that could be why it's been suppressed. If you take a look back when I was a kid growing up, it was, sure, yeah, it's the zodiac. Yeah, it's fun to read the horoscopes, and it was about the horoscopes. And you read this, it's like, that is me, that is Virgo, that's exactly. And then, oh, wait a minute, oh, well, I match up with what Gemini. That's how I feel at this time, and it was made to be a different thing, a very insignificant, just a fun thing to read, where the ancients, they lived by this thing. And it's something now that there's a lot of talk about it, where it's being taken a lot more seriously, and taken seriously by the wealthy. Well, that's interesting. So I'm talking about, beyond generational wealth, 12 families that run the world. Anyway, billionaires are the ones that watch the the zodiac. And to go to explanations as to why these things happen, we speculated, Ferdinand and I took some time and speculated on what are some of the reasons that this could be. It's not just some mystical thing that it's out there flinging around in the air and you go, well, this is what happens when that, no. There's real energy tied in to these things. These are cycles that have been read and pointed out for generation after generation after generation. And as those things are pointed out, we begin to see those patterns. Those patterns evolve to a same point, and they have those cycles. There's different cycles, whereas as we've been talking about. But what could be, and this is, so I'm going to go into just a little bit of my thinking. What could be why the zodiac would affect us puny humans? I mean, we are specks on the planet.
Let me dive into that real quick, right? So, one of the examples that I prefer to give when I'm explaining the zodiac to someone on how it works is we need to focus on light. We need to focus on elements, right? When we start focusing on light and we start focusing on elements, we start to understand. Okay, so let's use the moon. The moon has a new moon, and then it also has the full moon, right? So the new moon is usually illuminated very little, if there has any illumination, and all the illumination is the rays of the sun hitting the moon and bouncing off of it and hitting us. Okay, now once we get to the full moon, the moon is fully illuminated by the sun, and it is reflecting those rays after it hits the moon, and then it's reflecting those rays into our atmosphere. Now understand, when we have a full moon, this is where the lunatics come from. This is how we get people who are in a heightened emotional state because of the gravitational pull on water from the moon. We have a bulge in the ocean as a result. Okay, this is what light is doing. All right, I want everybody to understand that this is about light, but it's also about minerals. Okay, on what the moon is made of, because all those things that the moon is made of and every other planet is made of, we're also made of as well. Okay, so now we understand that because of light bouncing off of the moon at its highest clip, which we call full moon, we are influenced in a way, right? We're connected to that because we're made of primarily water. So the moon is raising our water. Now, this is what the moon does because of the minerals that it's made of and the light that's bouncing off of it. Now, let's apply that exact same thing to Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, right? Let's apply it to all of them. Saturn, whichever one I missed. And then you'll start to understand how the zodiac works. It works the exact same way as the moon. It just might not pull as much on emotions. We got to look at what each of those planets are made of, what minerals they're heavily made of. We got to look at what vibration each of those planets have in hertz.
So to kind of cap that and add to it, what Ferdinand's talking about when you're looking at the reflection, before we had microscopes that could look at these elements and see them literally down to the protons and neutrons, said right down to the nucleus, the elemental core. Before we could see that, we were able to recognize what those things were made of by what? Reflection of light and frequency. So you've got that. That is something that was used decades ago in order to identify different elements. Now take that reflection of light idea that where I'm just throwing in there about how you looked at different elements. Exactly what Ferdinand's talking about. The reflections, they come off in different ways, and it has a different look to us. If we look at that reflection and we see that come through to us, it looks different from one thing to the next. Now, as you have these things come across and these alignments happen, you're getting a certain mix of this from Mercury, and a certain amount of this from the moon, and a certain amount of this from Pluto, Saturn, and you, if you studied any kind of that planetary science, you know that each one of those things are made up of different, they've got very different makeup, and that makeup is being reflected. So that this is just, something that I threw out there, and maybe it's documented out there, I have no idea. But the idea of it being a different light reflection, those different lights, now you take these planets, all these planets, and they're coming into alignment between the backdrop of the sky, and you see it coming across one of those zodiac signs out here. And when this aligns with this, and then this aligns with that, you're getting this barrage of energy that's coming from outer space that is connecting to us individually, but also globally. So it's something that affects the whole planet. We're talking about real effects here. The other one that I wanted to add in there was gravity. Alignment of different astronomical bodies cause a change in the gravitational poles. Gravitational pole being the thing that what Ferdinand was talking about, the moon being the most significant to us because we can actually see the moon's effects on the earth with tidal, as you see it every 12 hours or so. You see high tides and low tides, and it's something that the moon is doing the primary effect at. But don't forget that there's all these other celestial bodies out there that are also having an effect. And when you align them, the scientific effects of light and vibration and gravity, these things, they're coming down at us, and it connects everything together. So before you go out and you say, it's a bunch of hocus pocus. No, man, it's science. I mean, these things, these charts that we're showing you, and these things that we're looking at, we're talking about scientifically based facts. That this is something that's been looked at for eons.
So when we look at, and this is just for everybody out there who's listening. Again, thank you for tuning into the Black and White Podcast. I'm the guy with the books. We got Tim Pop over here. Listen, when we say that, when we talk about the zodiac, many astronomers of today will list the zodiac or astrology as a pseudoscience, but understand that it couldn't be because we see these cycles play out, and at very specific times or very specific longitudes or latitudes of the planets in the celestial sphere, we see the same type of behavior happen from humanity over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's a strong correlation there. This is not connotative. Okay, please understand that this is not connotative what we're talking about. Anybody can go and Google this, right? Go look at what happened in the 1770s and tell me where Uranus was in the zodiac. Go look at what happened in the 1860s and tell me where Uranus was in the zodiac. What in the 1940s? Go look on Google and tell me where Uranus was in the 1940s. And
86 years apart.
84.
84.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 84 years. Every 84 years we get this. And
here we are again.
The end of year 83 right now.
Today, repeating cycles.
Today, my wife and I, we were reading the book of Isaiah in the Bible. And I highly recommend everybody out there reads Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Revelations. Read the whole thing over again, right? And try to read it from a symbolic perspective versus reading it from a literal perspective. Because if you read it from a symbolism type of perspective, you start to see that these stories unfold differently. You also start to see the people that are talked about in those books of the Bible. Some are considered righteous and they're being saved by the Lord. Then there's others who are considered wicked and they're being destroyed. Well, they're very detailed. It will help you to see exactly what's happening right now. So like in the book of Isaiah, it talks about how women will lose their hair, how they'll be bald-headed, how how they'll have their trinkets and their jewelry and all this stuff taken from them. Well, we already see a bunch of that happening right now. It's a whole bunch of people out here who go to the store and they buy hair and then they wear it around their house and they go to work with that hair on, right? A lot of these women, unfortunately, haven't had the proper minerals. They haven't taken care of their body properly, so they've lost their hair. And we also see the behavior that's talked about concerning those same women. We see the correlation of that. This is in the book of Isaiah. We was reading it today. The book of Jeremiah has similar things. The book of Ezekiel is super detailed on what happens to individuals who aren't following the laws, who aren't living the laws. They're living outside of what they're supposed to be living by. And Revelation is very specific on how many of those people will go. So I highly recommend everybody reads these books, because right now we're living in the times of what those individuals were explaining when they wrote those books. Keep in mind what Tim just said. Yes, those things happened all those thousands of years ago, but understand that they are cycles that keep playing out over and over again. There's an endless cycle until our sun grows too big and swallows up the earth, or it explodes, right? Until that happens.
Which it will happen.
Yes, it will happen, but it'll be billions of years from now when it happens.
At least millions, at least 850 million, I think.
Something, yeah. It'd have to be, yeah.
We're not going to be worried about
it. Yeah, absolutely not. But until that happens, everybody, like, we got some things on the horizon that you need to be preparing for. I made some podcast episodes some months ago. I might go ahead and redo them. But Uranus and Gemini is the only conversation that really matters. Every podcaster in the entire world should be having that conversation so that the people would know what's coming and know how to prepare for it. Because without these other leaders out here who got a microphone, without them speaking about these things and properly revealing it to the people, now the people are out here paying attention to nonsense. They're out here paying attention to stuff that gratifies their emotions right now, not realizing they're moonwalking towards a cliff.
Now, especially if you align with this, sorry about that. If you align with this thinking, like, share, and follow. Isn't that what you're supposed to say? Like, share, and follow. Even if you just say, these guys are crazy, like, share, and follow.
Yeah, like, share, and follow, y'all. I'm sorry for eating, y'all. It's my first meal today. I'm over here talking to Tim, and I'm like, "What? Hold up, I ain't even ate nothing yet. It's almost 8 o'clock." I get a little something, so I got some jungle soup right here.
Jungle soup.
Yeah, jungle soup.
How many times a week do you eat jungle soup?
Every day.
There you go. 7.
7. As long as I'm not fasting. If I'm not fasting, then it's jungle soup every day. That's the first meal. Usually it's the only meal. I usually only eat one meal a day.
Clean from the inside out, boy. I tell you, that jungle soup will really clean you out, especially when you first start eating it.
Yeah, and help you age slower. That's the kale is one of the foods that for anti-aging.
Superfood, yeah. Superfood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm about to turn 41 this year. You know, once I do another prolonged fast, I plan to look 27 maybe.
I'm doing a fast. We were going to try to start it today. That timing just wasn't right. Within a couple of days, though, we're going to do our 10-day. So, fasting is, look it up. You hear to everybody out there, if you're looking to start some kind of clean out, even just start easy, start small. Try to do some intermittent fasting where you go a whole week at a time, where you're eating one meal a day, or if you eat 2 meals a day, have them within, I think, 6 hours is always been what I've seen, but I'd say even keep it a little bit tighter than that, maybe 4 hours apart. If you're going to have 2 meals, just eat within that 4-hour period, and then don't eat anything until breakfast, which breakfast is when you break the fast. It has nothing to do with what hour a day it is. Oh, there it is. So, you've got the prolonged fasting. That's the next step, is to do where you're going over the 24 hours. And again, it has all these different health benefits, 48 hours. And then you get to the point where the next fast I'm going to do, well, I always intermittent fast. I typically only eat 2 meals at the most, 6 hours at the most apart. But when you get to the point where you're ready to do something serious, that 10-day detox is it'll clean you out. It'll clean you out, and it's something that, it really clears the mind. Well, it's not exactly doing the right thing. Well, yeah, it does both ends, head and everywhere else, all the way through the whole digestive system, baby. Clean you out, and the clarity that comes. And I don't know when I know that when I changed into intermittent fasting, all the way back when I started paleo, which was probably 10 years ago. And I'm on and off of between, I mean, there's paleo and what's the other one? Everybody's on it. Anyway, it's the same diet. Keto. Well, except, you get into ketosis. Paleo is just eat like a caveman. Anyway, so but my whole point of that is they all have this intermittent fasting has always been part of it. So I've done intermittent fasting for 10 years. And then I don't make it up to the 48 too often. That's going to be something I'm talked into from Ferdinand to make this a part of my regular life and do it a little bit more frequently. But like I said, the next one I'm doing, do you have the 10-day on there? I see 3 days.
No, I don't. I just what's there on
up to the 72. So that the rest of that clean out happens. You go, so you can see what happens 3 days. You go from the 24 hours, what happens from, between the 24 hours and the 48, and then up to the 3 days, and what happens with those, and those benefits continue to build throughout the 10 days. And it's I've done one, and it's really good. It's something that you can almost feel things like your pineal gland decalcifying and opening up. And I mean, I've always eaten pretty good. That's been always a thing that I've done. My mother was very interested in healthy eating. So, I mean, we ate out of the garden as much as possible. And that was before they started putting the ingredients onto boxes. Saw that change while I was old enough to see it. And then I'm reading these boxes going, man, we should be eating this, and she's like, you're right. And we would just do things more natural, more direct source as much as possible. And that was something the way I've always lived. So I'm not going to see as dramatic changes as somebody who grew up eating out of the grocery store and eating all of the preservatives and everything that goes in there. You read down that list, and I actually know what most of those things are. And I'm reading them going, this is not something that human beings should be putting in their bodies on a regular basis. It's just not what we're designed to digest. Right. And, anybody who lives like that, has lived like that, if it's the first part, if they're my age, or 18 years younger, Ferdinand's age, and you've been eating this chemical substitute of food for your entire life, the longer you've been eating it, the longer the turnaround is going to take. The best thing you can do though is start right now, and start feeding your kids out of these natural sources instead of, the boxes that are in stores. There's better sources now. I think Ferdinand will probably disagree with me, but there's some of the sourcing that is pretty good in some of the stores that we buy out of Costco, and we do direct farm to table as much as possible. We try to eat the foods that are in season so that they don't have to travel that far. So it's local stuff. Start to grow your own gardens. We're going to do another garden again this year. I grew up doing gardens. We've done, I don't know, out of our 34 years married. Well, the first 4 we were in apartments. So, but we were sharing gardening with my parents. So even then had some garden food time. And then we did probably out of 18 years at the other house, it's been mostly farm. I mean, garden, but it's only good here for what, 6 months, maybe out of the year, and you replant things that can grow fast, but start learning how to do that, because you're going to really appreciate that, especially I said April, but I got to find out where this timeline got shifted to the right on me, but July of 2026, you're going to want to be good at gardening by then.
No, you're going to want to be good at gardening right now.
Well, when I say good at it, I mean start practicing now, so you learn how to do things, how to take care of the weeding problems without using chemicals. Take this year as a learning process. By next year, July 2026, you're going to be good enough at it where you're going to be able to overcome some obstacles. You'll need it.
I guarantee y'all that Tim is correct. You literally are going to need it. I recommend that you get good at gardening right now. If you're not good at it, you want to be good at it by the end of the week. By the time the spring comes in, you want to grow the biggest garden that you've ever grown in your life. And if you've never grown one before, you want to look at your front and your backyard all right, I'm gonna turn dang near the whole thing into food. That's gonna be a lot of work. But this is the thing. What you grow in 2025 and 2026, you're gonna need that food for 2027 through 2032. Unless you plan on being under the control of the United States government.
You got some financial things we're going to be talking about too that you should be doing. Preparation for those times. There's going to be, and I believe in that there's going to be a major wealth transfer. So that's going to be part of it too. And hopefully everybody that we ever have view these podcasts, plus anybody that's picking up on the data that's out there, we're just going to be talking about it. We're not charging any money for it. They all want to charge money out there. You see these. There's a lot of talk about transfer of wealth, and that we're going to see the largest transfer of wealth that we have ever seen in the world. And it's starting to happen. It's going to go on for the next few years. So if you position yourself financially in the right places and do some things, preparation for being able to trade, and you know what, if you don't have any money, you don't have to buy gold. You can stockpile food, learn how to can and dry foods. You'll be able to trade food for what you need. There's people that are out there, they're going to be hungry. And if they have something that they can trade, they'll trade. That's going to be almost as effective as, I like these little gold. They're grams. It's pretty nice denomination. Tiny little chip of gold, but very effective. Very effective. Didn't mean to get pushed off onto the side of that, but we're going to continue to talk about these things. And Ferdinand, every time that I talk to you, man, I know I didn't get to this. We're going to get to it next week, because I think we're going to be closing it up here pretty quickly. But we're going to keep these podcasts going. And the more I talk to Ferdinand, the more I realize that we're talking about a global change, and it's a change that he's had a vision for this longer than I have. And but the cycles that I see coming around, all they've been done is reinforced by the things that Ferdinand knows. And I've actually, come to appreciate a little bit more and have my own ideas of that theory the theory of those types of cycles and what that means to us. Ferdinand's knowledge of this is got such an incredible depth to it that it's compelling and very interesting to dive deep on. Ferdinand, I think you kind of dove a little deeper than some people were expecting on that, but we can actually do a deep dive on the zodiac and what that means. That might be after we finish our cycle, the cycle that we have for what we're doing for this podcast. What's next week? Money and how it shaped the world.
There you go.
How perfect is that? So we'll touch on some of that stuff more. What I'm referring to now, which is more of kind of safe places to put money, things to do for money preparation. That'll be. I'll add that into what we're talking about, so we make sure that we touch on that.
I think that's a super important conversation that needs to happen right now on how people should move money.
Yeah. And I'm going to give some real general things, and I'm going to have to pull up one of my old. I had my Series 7, Series 63. So I'm going to have to pull up a disclaimer. We are not investment advisors, and anything you do based on what we say could actually cause you to lose money. Don't ever put any money where all the rest of it. It's going to be an official disclaimer, believe me, because that's a serious thing. When you take a look at FINRA, and they don't tolerate people just going out there and giving financial advice. Mm-hmm. So we'll have a disclaimer for that, just to make sure that we're not saying anything that is going to get us into trouble. I tell you to buy gold, and gold goes out and crashes to $500 an ounce. You go, Pop told me to do it. No.
Well, for everybody out there, since Tim is doesn't feel comfortable telling you, I'll tell you, go buy gold, okay? Because during a war, gold's value goes through the roof. Go buy as much.
It's a calamity investment for sure.
And you can get gold if you need gold bars, ounces, and kilos. You can get them at Walmart, literally, about $2,800 an ounce.
Are they selling kilos?
They sell kilos as well. Kilos is a little over 90,000.
I had no idea they were selling it over there.
Yeah.
And I mentioned grams. You want to have that for exchange, but grams are more expensive. And I have no problem saying buy gold. I mean, everybody on the planet says buy gold. Nobody can come and say I'm the one that made them decide. That's crazy. We're going to be talking about some other financial vehicles. Those are the ones that really need the disclaimer. Buying gold, absolutely. And in the times of it is, look it up. First thing that you'll see when you look up investing in gold, it'll say gold is commonly referred to as a calamity investment. I mean, it says it's out there. It's out there everywhere. Well, we're coming up to that point where be good to have this. Be good to have a backup in some shiny yellow metal. Oh, did I say I didn't finish that sentence? Grams are much more expensive when you add them up where they weigh an ounce. It's a lot more money than just buying an ounce of gold, but it's a lot easier to trade with somebody for something that's officially stamped as to what the weight is. So you're not in there with scales, trying to shave off a chunk of gold, off an ounce of gold, because what you're buying is only worth $50 or $100. Well, if all you have is ounces, I guess you could start shaving it off, and weighing it. But if you have it where it's already stamped and it's kind of official type of stamp. Anyway, I think the grams are pretty cool.
Well, that sounds good. Y'all, it's we're coming to the end of our episode. Oh, yeah, thanks for showing. Yeah, nice.
Little package it's in a plastic sleeve. That's why it's more expensive. Getting it down to size, still stamping it, and then putting it in individual packaging. So that's what grams look like.
Well, thank you for showing that. So we're on the Black and White podcast. I'm the guy with the books. We got Tim Pop over here. It's episode 4. We was talking about religion, but we didn't touch on quite a few different things. So listen, we're coming back next week with a financial conversation. But in the meantime, I want to give my brother Tim a chance to give his closing remarks.
You know, I always come back to the same thing because I think it's a good place for us to focus our minds. And short of saying a prayer, I will say outside of the prayer format, be good to one another. You know, channel the best parts of your life into what is outside of your life. Show people who you are in the best possible light. If you find yourself cutting people down all the time, maybe give that a second thought and start to uplift others. Bring it to a place in your heart and soul where you're sharing the best part of who you are with the others that are around you. Obviously, family comes first, but there's a whole lot of other people out there that still need help, love, life. Be there for others. Be righteous. Live life well, and it will come back to you. We'll be talking about law of attraction in the future. A lot of people have heard that. We're going to dig deep on that term, but the law of attraction is something that'll pay you back, which means be good to people, and it'll come back to you tenfold. Thanks, Ferdinand. I appreciate my time with you as always. We always had such a good time talking. We didn't talk at all for a week because I wanted to bring up this other topic, which we didn't get to. But we'll get it out there. It'll come out, and we'll dig into it. But in the meantime, have a great week. Be blessed. Ferdinand?
Thank you very much, Tim. I really appreciate you. It's always a great conversation, and it does feel a little strange that we haven't talked for a whole week. There's been a lot of days, a lot of months where every week we've had 2, 3, 4, 5 conversations, and I'm very thankful for those conversations. One of the things I love to brag about with my friend Tim is that he's been married for 34 years, and in America, this is kind of hard to come across. And come across people who have been married for so long, and you're able to they're transparent, and sometimes they'll be willing to be vulnerable with you to tell you about some of the challenges that they faced. And Tim has done that with me, and that's helped me to get through different challenges in my life. So I'm very thankful for the counsel that I get from Tim, learning about electricity, learning about building, and going into deep conversations on quantum physics. Very, very thankful for that. Very thankful for the connection that I have with Tim's family, with his beautiful wife, with his son, with his mother, So we've been able to build a great friendship over time. But yes, this is the Black and White Podcast. I'm the guy with the books. We got Tim Pop over here, and we're uplifting humanity. That's what we're doing here, okay? This is going to be contagious. Y'all going to make it contagious. Share this video. Until next time, all right? Y'all take care.